Hi everyone, welcome to today's training. In this masterclass, we're going to be talking about brand representation, particularly as a basis for building an entire marketing practice. So I'm going to share with you the things that I do to help a brand represent themselves, to create brand affinity, and the things that you may look to do as well in your business. So let's get started. So first, I just want to welcome you to the class. There, at the end of the class, we will be talking about a marketing blueprint that I have made available to this audience. So if you want to take advantage of that course, then you can do so at the end of the lesson. We will be talking about what is part of that course after we discuss brand representation. So you may be wondering, are you in the right place for this particular masterclass? You are if you're a founder who needs to start marketing your business, but you don't know where to get started. You also could be the first marketing hire that has ever been at your organization, and you have a lot on your plate, but you need guidance on what the marketing basics are for an organization of your size and what should be implemented to get you started. Or you work at a startup, or you own your own business, your small business, and you need a blueprint on how to get started with marketing because you're maybe not necessarily someone who has a background in marketing or a degree or any of that. So you just don't know what things come first. So I'm so glad you're here. I want to give you a little bit of overview on who I am because then maybe you'll get an idea of why I should be teaching this class. So first, I'm Rosa Lear. I do own my own organization called Rosa Lear Services, LLC, and I offer marketing consulting services. Just a little background on me. I've run 12 marathons in my life, and I'm hoping to maybe do one more. I'm not quite sure. I've also run 35 half marathons, and my goal is to get that to 50 before I turn 50 years old. I love books and movies. I love the fact that it can take you out of your life and present you with a world that you have never been exposed to. And so I am a voracious reader and I love movies, particularly action movies. I have two boys that I love dearly, and so I am a boy mom. I am used to all of the things that boys love to talk about and all the activities that they're into, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I also have two dogs, she's half boxer, half chihuahua, which you can imagine that's a very weird combination, and then a small terrier. So I love the dog life. I have worked 20 plus years in the industry at a swath of companies. So I've been at startups, mid-sized businesses, and large enterprises. It has given me a really good perspective on what you need to do in the early phases to be ready for those later phases. So that gives me just a wealth of knowledge on what you need to do for any bit of practice, the marketing practice within your organization, what you need to put into place, how you feed the beast, like all the things that we talk about in marketing. I have done all of them, and I'm happy to say that I still love marketing after all these years. I also have a BS from San Jose University and an MBA from Santa Clara University, both in marketing. So let's talk about brand representation. This is the meat of the masterclass that you've signed up for. So what is brand representation? First, it's defined as the company's identity and how it's represented in a physical manner. So this is something that needs to be consistent across all of your external facing documents, assets, anything else, anything that you're putting out there that someone is going to associate with your company. So for instance, my brand representation, the first thing that I have is my face. That's what people see. That's what they know who to look for. They recognize me. Those are all the same elements that you want to have for your organization. So this is going to have to be consistent across your website, any signage that you have, your content, your social media, any clothing that you brand for your organization, any communications you put out in the world. The other thing that you also want to consider is that this brand representation needs to be used internally as well. So anything that you are putting together internally that eventually will be external, like if you have a customer portal or something like that, or a GUI of some sort that you use to manage your platform, you want all of that to have brand consistency throughout so that it doesn't matter what the company or the customer is using from you, it all looks the same and it came from the same place. So, why is it important? So, companies with a clear story are usually valued by customers and investors at a much higher rate. So, if you just created the company and you picked a name out of the sky and it doesn't really mean anything to the software or the product that you're creating, and you don't know exactly why you put this organization together, then it's going to be really hard for customers and investors to see the value in your business, because we all have a backstory. We all have something that makes us unique. And if you are just like any other company that hasn't differentiated itself, then it's hard for people to get invested in that story. And so we want to make sure that our brand represents that story that we're trying to tell to our audience. It also communicates who you are, what you stand for. That could be your product, your what you're doing externally, how you're supporting customers, what you're promising to those customers. So you want to make sure that whatever you choose from a physical representation perspective incorporates all of these things. It also provides a guide to the rest of your company, your employees, on what to follow as they conduct themselves in an external manner. You want to make sure that they are consistent in the how they have their signatures, how what documents they're sending out, what they are doing to represent themselves outside of the four walls of your organization. All of those things need to be consistent, because it's how somebody from a psychological perspective gets cemented in their head. You want whatever you are offering to be associated with the brand of your company. And there's a lot of reasons why you need to do that from that perspective of being remembered by your audience. It also helps you to differentiate yourself from your competition. Obviously, if every company had the same look and feel, had the same story to tell, you all become a commodity. So, why are you going to be different than someone else? Especially if you are going into a market where there are established competitors and you need to differentiate yourself from that competition. How are you going to do that? And your brand does a lot of that for you. And also, it helps to attract top talent. So, when a person sees a company that stands for a certain thing, that looks good, that looks fun, that looks like it is doing something meaningful in the world, a lot of times that will attract like people. So, what you want to do when you're representing your brand externally is to make sure that story comes across, because you want to attract the talent that is going to help you speed up your progress out there in the market and allow you to grow. But also, it attracts people that are like the others in your organization. Part of the problem that a lot of companies have is that they have conflicting personalities, or their culture isn't cemented and the people just don't fit in. And while we don't want homogenous groups of people running your organization, you do want them to click, because the better your team works together, the better your organization will have success later on. But if your story isn't backed up by the actions that you have going on, if you don't follow through on the promises that you've made, your audience will see that. So if you decide on publicizing your story or creating a brand representation that really does tell your story, you have to be consistent in what you're doing. You cannot pivot, you cannot change that dramatically, because then people will think you're fake, and authenticity is a very big thing. Everyone within your organization must be on the same page. So everyone should be educated on what that story is, what your narrative is to the audience, what things you're promising to your customers. It needs to start from leadership and it needs to trickle down. So they must establish what this brand means to the audience, what you're trying to accomplish, and then everybody needs to understand that. That should be part of the training when you hire anyone into the organization. And brand representation is much more than a logo. You can see my logo at the bottom of this screen, Rosalie Our Services. That is just something that helps represent me. It is not who I am, but it does tell my story. The little icon or monogram, as we call them, to the left of my name, that is representing like a thought that has legs, that is creating, that is spurring outwards, that has continuous growth. And that's why I created it that way, is because I think that everybody has a unique story, and whatever that central piece is unique to you. You can take it in many different directions. You can interpret this monogram a lot of different ways. But for me, it just means that there's constant growth going on, that you want to be constantly creative, that you want to have lots of things going on that make you successful. And it doesn't have to be a ton of them. It could be 2 or 3. I want to focus in on those things and I want to do them really well. That is my story. At least that's what my logo is what it's trying to convey. So in this case, we're looking at a couple of different companies and what does their brand represent for them. So with Netflix, they are a streaming entertainment content platform and they suit anyone's taste. So what they have done is they have narrowed in. Now they are just doing the online component of delivering entertainment to a bunch of different users, but they are so good about spreading their content far and wide. There is so much content on their platform that anyone can find something that is applicable for them. So the next one is Amazon. With Amazon, their brand is talking about everything you need when you need it. And their logo represents that. You can see the arrow that connects the A to Z. Everything you need is on this platform. And they have backed that story up by making sure that whatever they have on their platform suits everyone's needs, just like Netflix. You can get it when you need it. You just place the order and it will be there within, if you have Amazon Prime, within a couple of days. Sometimes it takes longer depending where you're located, but you can find just about anything you need on Amazon. With Nike, their tagline has always been just do it. It's all about positivity, inclusiveness, fun. When they are advertising, that's what is shown in the images that they have. It's giving you the confidence in your shoe wear, your clothing, whatever that they provide, that it fits everyone. They do not discriminate against who buys their stuff. And they are a fun brand. I mean, that's what, when you look at their images, you can tell it's a Nike image. It's usually someone doing the things that you would expect someone who is positive, inclusive, and fun to do. And then finally, there's McDonald's. And there's a lot more examples that we could go into, but McDonald's feeds and fosters community. They are everywhere. At least in my neighborhood, you can find them on almost every corner. Their arches actually convey that feeling of community. They're embracing people under their arches. They're making sure that they're fed. They also back that up by having value meals and things that are affordable to a community that may not be able to get food in another location, or they don't want people to go hungry, so they make things affordable to everyone. Okay, so let's get started with brand representation. So first, you want to do research. The first thing that you want to do is find out what your customers' pain points are. What is the thing that is causing them their ouchies? This means that you need to go talk to your customers. And if you are particularly a marketer or a founder or someone who is going to be running your marketing, you need to go talk to those customers and not just take the word of the people on your team who are working with these customers. You need to understand firsthand what is causing them pain, what solutions are they looking for, where do they find their information, how are they influenced in the market. You need to understand that at such a granular and deep level that whatever they are telling you is the thing that you are going to address in your marketing material, in your marketing campaigns, anything that is related to communicating your brand externally. That is what you need to narrow in on. And the only way that you can do this is by talking to your customers. You cannot do this in a vacuum with a group of individuals internally talking about it. Once you have the conversations with your customers, then you can bring that internally and share it with your teams. And then you can come up with ideas on how you address the points that the customer brought up. but don't do this in a backward way where you're coming up with ideas and then you go to the customer and test them out. Do it the opposite way. Listen to the customer, really understand them, spend time with them, and do this across a group of them. Realizing that as a startup, you may have only a few customers or a few prospects, but you know who your target audience is. You know why you created this product and what problem it's supposed to solve. Now go and talk to the people that you are targeting for this product or this service and find out from them actually what the pain points are so that you can then address them. What does the customer want from you? You need to understand that. So first you understand their pain, and then you understand what your role is in solving that pain. What does the product need to do for them? And as soon as you can address that, that's where your marketing messages start to come together and where they start to gel in your head. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the customer. If you don't do the right thing by the customer, then your company is not going to survive. So understand what their pain points are, and then what do they want you to do for them. Then you need to understand, how are you different from others that are offering similar solutions? It doesn't even have to be a one-to-one match. So say you entered a market, you have a innovative new product or service that is going to solve these people's problems, but there's already an incumbent competitor or several in the market. What are you doing that's different from those guys? And this can be any number of things, because obviously you're not going to come to market with a product that is just like theirs or solves the exact same thing in this exact same way as your competitors. So you need to articulate what are the things that make you unique, and those are the things that you are going to want to highlight in your messages and what your brand is bringing to the table. And then finally, identify what is your company's personality. Are you going to be very businesslike, dry? Are you going to be a little bit more fun? Are you going to be someone who does, like, people don't know what's going on, like not know what's not going on, but you're doing so many different things that you're attracting the attention of different groups of people. Like, you're not always the same all the time. Are you somebody that's constantly evolving? Are you always pushing the envelope? Are you asking questions that make people go, So decide on what your company personality needs to be. And this part is, you can also look at your competitors and say, hi, I want to be different than them. So say company A, your biggest competitor, they are very straight-laced, they're very businesslike in all the things that they put out. You want to be a little bit different from that. You don't want to be exactly the same personality as them. So how are you going to make your personality unique so that that's associated now with your brand? Here's my recommendation. So use a brand development expert as a contractor so that you can help create your brand. So you will need to have those things that I just mentioned on the previous slide all articulated before you bring a brand representative on to help you develop what your story and your narrative is. And this is because they are going to ask you those questions. I mean, those are the top questions that a brand development expert will ask is, what are these points that I can then create something in my head that creates a logo, creates your brand story, creates all these pieces that is going to be used to define who you are. So a brand development expert, the key to finding one is that first of all, a brand development expert is not the same as a graphic designer. A brand development expert is used to creating stories for companies. They will use a graphic designer to create your logo, most likely, but that's not what they do. They are turning material and information into a visual representation and a story. So the graphic designer will come in as you're trying to create a color palette. What colors go together? What is going to express your brand in a very visual way? And then they'll bring all of that to life once the story is nailed down. You can get referrals from, if you're, especially if you're an early stage startup, you likely have your VCs. So talk to your VCs, see who else, what other companies have used brand experts. Can they give you recommendations? You can also talk to your fellow founders or others in the organization that have had a startup in the last several years. They likely worked with one as well. You can also look at portals like Upwork and Behance. They have really good sources for graphic designers and brand developers. And so you don't have to just use one or the other. It doesn't, sometimes they're not all part of one organization, or they're one person. They might be several. So if you have a group of people that you can work with, this is a good place to go if you don't get referrals from the VCs or your fellow colleagues. A brand expert will also interview you. They want to know not only the information that you're going to get from your customers on them telling the story, but they want to know what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, what are you trying to solve, and they'll try to weave that into the graphic representation. So you should also have that defined before you go into these calls. They will ask you lots of different questions, but you in your head should have this ironed out and know exactly what it is that what your company is about, so that you can communicate that to them. And they should give you a lot of different options. So if they come back to you and they only have one option for your brand, then you probably should move on and look for another expert, because creating your brand is not easy. I mean, it should not be a simple exercise that's just a checkbox. Especially in the beginning, you want to spend some time putting this together, because it's going to be around for a while. It's going to be what your audience associates with you. So don't be rushed. Don't allow them to rush you, but be patient with them and work with them to get to the final delivery point of what you want to put out there. So what they're going to deliver to you is a host of things. First, they're going to give you your color palette. And this color palette are the colors that you should be using on your website and your social images, anything that you're using internally. It's going to be a limited scope of colors. There's usually primary colors and secondary colors that you can use, and they'll provide this in a number of different ways. So there's either Hex, Pantone, RBG, CMKY. All of those, you are going to need those codes, because as you're doing graphic design later on, whether or not you go with an organization, an external organization, or you have people internally that you're using to create things for your business, you're going to need to know these codes to provide it to them so that they can stay within your brand guidelines. They're also going to give you guidelines on how to use your logo. For instance, there's every company has or should have rules about how your logo is used. For instance, you don't, if like my logo is long and wide, so or narrow, sorry, and I would not be okay with it if somebody took my logo and extended it and make it really, tall, or elongated it more, or squished it down. Like, it has to say in a certain proximity. You can make it smaller or bigger, but it has to always be uniform and look the way that I have made it look. So that's the same things that will be used for your logo. You don't want it too close to a corner. You want some white space around it. You need it to stay within its proportions. All of those things will be articulated in that document. They will also give you imagery that you can use to associate with your brand. So if you're using, say, for instance, social images when you're on social media, you may want to use certain types of imagery, and you need examples of that so that when you are putting anything together, it doesn't go away from what you have established already as something that is going to help represent your brand. They'll also provide tagline usage, like when do you use it, when do you not use it, and all of this is very important, because especially as you're growing and you're working with different groups of people, they all will get these brand guidelines and be able to use that and repeat it. So the tagline is important because you don't want people changing the way that it's written or what it says, or interpreting it in a different way. So that's very specific to these brand guidelines. You also need to understand what your language is going to be, how you speak. Are you more conversational? Are you more laid back? Are you more professional? So there's different ways of a company, or a company usually has a tone in the way that they write content, the way that they write social copy, the way that their website is represented and the copy that's used there. So you want to have this defined on what that's going to sound like, so that everybody's on the same page again. Like there's no differentiation. Like if, it doesn't matter if you're in engineering or you're in marketing. You're speaking the same language, you're representing the company in the same way. You will also get from them logo type. So once the logo is defined, they'll give it to you in different formats. EPS is also called a vector file. So there's different versions of that, but EPS is the most normal to use. And that's usually a file that you can't like open up in Word or something like that. It is used for graphic designers to optimize to the thing that they are creating. PNG and JPEG are usually the ones that you would send to partners or customers for usage there, and it's a very normal file. PNG is usually has the clear background on it if you choose that, and that's great for putting on things where you can see through the logo. And they'll provide it in various different forms. So you definitely want a full color version, depending on what your colors are that you chose. You want an all white version, an all black version, and then a reverse. So the full color will be then reversed so that you can use this on different types of images and graphics and things like that. So how do you use your new brand? The first thing is marketing is all about consistency. You should be consistent in everything that you're doing, because that is what people get used to and that's what they begin to trust. And understanding how somebody is, how a company is, how they portray themselves, how they are represented externally, that consistency creates brand affinity, and which means trust. They trust your brand. And at the end of the day, every company that is successful needs to be trusted by their customers. They should never second guess you. And so part of this is repetition. It is the key to creating brand awareness and customer recall. When a customer is looking for a solution, and they should think of you, you should be so firmly cemented in their head that you are the solution to their problem, that you solve their pain. And doing so means that you need to be repeating your messages, you need to be repeating your content, you need to have some sort of consistency out in the market, so that it's what's called a vote set. When you think of something, when you think of a problem, you then have a solution in mind. There are always things that pop into people's minds when they have a problem, what the solution could be. And like if I need to blow my nose, the first thing I think of is I need a tissue. And that is a learned behavior. That's the same thing that you want to do with your brand. Your visual brand should be used everywhere your company appears consistently. So you need to have your logo always at the ready. You need to have it posted wherever your name is shown. If you're working with like an ecosystem of partners, or you have customers that want to talk about you externally, you need to provide them with their logo so it's always associated with whatever they are talking about. That helps associate more of who you are in people's minds, and it gets them seeing it over and over and over and over again. Most of us are visual people, and so seeing that logo over and over again, it's similar to just about any brand that you get used to. When you think about laundry detergent, you think of Tide. When you think of toothpaste, you may think of Crest or Colgate. Like, you just have that association. And so that's why the brand or the logo is very important, because when you think of these items, it's no different for business than it is for these consumer brands. When you think of any type of technology, you immediately will think of some sort of brand that's associated with it. That is what you are trying to create with your company and your visual brand. You need to educate your team. So this is something that I would recommend every company do, is at least once a year, is bring all your people together and give them a refresher on what your brand is, how to use your logo, what's the tone of your voice out there in the market, What are your colors? All of that people should know like the back of their hand. And this is not just people that are external facing. It's not just the marketing team that is putting things out that go out into the market. Your engineering team, your product team, your product management team, your support staff, all of these people need to know what this is. It's just like it is branding 101 to have everyone be part of this. And you need to equip your team with the assets they need in a shared folder, because you never want them. This is, believe me, this has happened to me quite a lot, is when if the logos were not easy to find, they would go take it off the website, just copy and paste off the website, or they would find some way, like some document, and copy and paste there. First of all, that's not the way to do it, because oftentimes when you're clipping those things, they can get distorted. There's often something underneath that logo that doesn't come across well when you paste it. There's just it's just a host of issues that you can run into when people are trying to self-serve by going to your website, going to Google Images, all of that stuff. You want to alleviate that. So put it in a shared folder where everybody can get a hold of your logos, your brand guidelines, all of that, and make sure that they use those original files rather than going to get them somewhere else, because you're going to start to have to unwind a lot of that, and it's not worth it. The brand representation guidelines, you want to provide that to all of your developers who are helping to develop software or whatever it is that you create. And you also need to provide it to designers that are helping you from a marketing perspective, because the brand should be everywhere. It should be the most important thing that you're talking about when you're going external. Your story and your brand representation are what people will associate in their head with you. And it's got to be integrated into your product. If your GUI doesn't look like the rest of your website, the rest of your documents, all of that, if it's using different fonts, if it's using different colors, the customer will feel like they're having two different experiences. Oh, I got this one when I was first engaging with you, and now I get this other one that feels like it's a completely different company or some sort of derivative. And so just make sure everything looks the same. If you software can be changed, you can update all the things that you want. So be synergistic across these experiences so the customer gets the great experience. Okay, now that we've gone through brand representation, let's talk about the course that I mentioned at the beginning of this training. So what I have developed based on my 20 plus years in marketing and working for different organizations is a marketing blueprint for startups course. And this blueprint is the way that what I have used in my long experience in building up organizations, things that I've put into place that have helped the company scale, that have brought it brand recognition. And it allows you, once you put these things into place and doing all of these pillars, it will help you also scale. So the problem that I have seen throughout my experience is that sometimes I step in after things have been already put into place from a marketing perspective. And what I find is that a lot of that has to be unwound or it needs to be replaced. And while there is a certain portion of what you're doing from a marketing perspective as you grow that needs to change to support that growth, there are so many things that you can do to get ready for that will make it less painful for you. So this blueprint walks you through all of the things that you need to do as a startup to get started marketing. So let's take a look at what that means. So why this course in particular? So marketing degrees, and I know because I have both a BS and a MBA in marketing, is that they don't arm you with knowing what to do right out of the gate. I know a lot of people who think that having that degree means that now you are the expert and you probably know a lot more about marketing than somebody who didn't do marketing when you graduate. But it doesn't mean that you can then just run with stuff, because a lot of times you're not getting a blueprint of what you need to do for your organization to set them up for success. So this course helps to alleviate that. The other thing that we often don't have is we lack mentors who know what direction we should be going in, or there is a lack of direction when we're starting doing marketing. There's just isn't someone who has put together what the roadmap needs to look like, especially if you're the CEO or a founder or someone who is responsible for marketing, or you're the first marketing hire. If you're lacking those types of mentors that have done this before, then you need to figure it out on your own. And that could mean a longer ramp time to getting marketing going. It could mean there's so much research that you don't know where. I mean, it's overwhelming the amount of things that you can do. And marketing is constantly evolving. So, where do you get started? What's your starting point? What do you build on? What needs to be the infrastructure that you're building everything else on top of? So this course will help you identify those things. And like I said, marketing evolves very quickly. There's lots of things that are emerging that you can do, and it really depends on what business you're in. But what's right for your business? How do you choose what's right for your business? What are the things that you absolutely cannot do without, and what are the things that you can do without, or you can do later, or you can do when you have more money or funding or team members, or whatever that looks like. The next thing is marketing strategies and tactics are not a one size fits all. Whatever another organization is doing is not necessarily going to be right for your business, because your audience is unique, your product is unique, the combination of those two is unique, your teammates are unique. Whatever the things are that are making your organization who it is are unique to the market, are unique to your audience. So you need to highlight those things in different ways. And just because your competitors are doing something doesn't mean that whatever they're doing, you should copycat. Copycat strategies often fall flat because you run out of steam, and then people see the pattern. Oh, so and so did something, now you're doing it. Like that, it just creates a lack of trust from the audience because they don't believe in the things that you are doing. You don't have a unique story. You don't have the ability to create your own strategies. So, whatever you're putting into place for your organization, it should be unique to you and custom to what you are doing. And perfection is the enemy of action. So if you're waiting for everything to be perfect, everything to be dialed in before you start taking steps, then you're never going to get where you want to go. You need to sometimes launch things before they're even ready, before you have perfected them, to test them out, to get them ready, especially in the early stages. There's not a lot of room for failure, but you need to try different things to figure out what is going to work for you. And so what I'm recommending here is don't wait until perfect. Wait until 80-90% ready, launch, test, and then revise. And that is a theme throughout my course. So I keep getting ahead of myself, but you want to try, you want to fail. You're also the path to success is not often an upward trajectory. It's usually a step function. You're going to have ups and downs, and you need to have the failures to have the successes. You're not going to always have success. So what's going to happen is in the beginning, you're likely to try things, you're likely to fail, you're likely to try again with some tweaks, you're likely to fail again, you're going to have success, you're going to try to build on that success and try something else. You may fail, you may succeed, but over time, if you have this mentality of trying and failing and succeeding and learning and putting that back into practice, you're going to have more success than not. Okay, so the course itself is a step-by-step guide. It is something that allows you in this fast-paced world of business to put things into place that can differentiate you from being obscure and people not knowing you to being very successful. So effective strategies are very, very important, and the step-by-step guide will allow you to do that. It is tailored to entrepreneurs and startup firms or startup companies who really want to put together a marketing infrastructure that is going to help them build their brand affinity and achieve their marketing goals or their business goals, business goals come first. Marketing always supports business goals. But this course is designed for those individuals who need to build marketing infrastructure and who need to launch a strategy that is going to work for their business. It is a step-by-step guide, and it's for your entire practice. So I'm going to go into each of the modules that I provide in this lesson and what you're going to get out of them, so you have an idea that I am covering the full scope of what you need to do from marketing. And it needs to start off on the right foot. You always need to build the infrastructure, especially as you're putting strategies into place, because if your marketing infrastructure is weak, then whatever you're doing to drive growth, you can't measure it, you can't see what you've done wrong in the past, you can't see your successes, it's going to be very difficult to drive the rest of the things that you need to do. Your brand awareness is not going to work as well. You're not going to be able to achieve your goals as well. So putting that infrastructure in place and then building on top is important. For instance, you don't, like the whole adage of building a house on sand. The sand can go away and then your house falls down. That sand needs to be turned into concrete so that your marketing practice doesn't fall down and doesn't fall into an ocean. So let's go over the modules that I have in this lesson. So the first one is going to be all about the voice of the company, and it's really about what are the expectations we have for leaders. I've put specifically these three guys on the right-hand side because they're not only individuals in their and leaders in their own right, but they represent their organizations. I mean, when you think of Elon Musk, you immediately think of Tesla. Whether or not you agree with his strategies and the way that he speaks about technology and what he's doing in business, he is the face of Tesla, and he's become the face of a couple of other companies as well. But that's what you associate in your brain. Jeff Bezos, whenever you think of him, you think of Amazon. Like, he is the spokesperson for that organization, whether or not he's still leading it. And Warren Buffett is the same for Berkshire Hathaway. He is the face of that organization. Even when other CEOs come in later on, you still remember these guys as the ones that were representing their organizations. So part of being the voice of a company and establishing that voice is to find a spokesperson that can speak on behalf of your organization, that can be a representative to the rest of the audience. This is going to be important for press releases, podcasts, anything that has to do getting up on stage and talking at an event, sharing the vision for the organization. And it doesn't have to be just one spokesperson. You can have several spokespeople, but you want to identify who those individuals are so that they can speak on behalf of your company. You also, the module also goes into getting comfortable in the limelight. So once you've chosen those spokespeople and you have set expectations for your leadership, how do you get the leadership and those spokespeople comfortable in the limelight? Because a lot of people are not comfortable with it. The number one fear in the world is, I think after dying, is public speaking. I mean, like, it's very, very, very difficult to do that. And how do you get comfortable getting in front of people? And you may not be ever comfortable in it, but you have to have comfort in the discomfort. If you understand what I mean. Like, you have to know how to manage that discomfort so that you can be a good representative to your brand. And a lot of this goes into building brand affinity. What is it? I'm going to describe that. How do you do that through your spokesperson? And then finally, in the module, we'll talk about trusting your team, letting go of expectations, letting the solution matter experts on your team manage things that you should not be managing. How do you let go of those things so that you trust them to do what they're doing, so that you have the time and mental capacity to do the things that you need to do as either a leader or a marketing representative? In Module 2, we get into talking about building teams. And really, the crux of this is going to be about how and when do you hire people? When do you contract with people? What are the stages at which you need different individuals on the marketing team in order to support the the growth of the organization. And it's not the same for every organization, but I do have lots of recommendations and lots of ways that you should think about how you're hiring these different people to support that growth. So specifically, we're going to be talking about also full-time employees versus contractors. When do you use either or? At what stage, what growth stage, and keeping budgets in mind, because obviously as a early stage startup or even a series A or B, you're going to be limited on how much you can spend. So how do you optimize that spend to have the team to support your goals? Then we're going to talk about the marketing essentials. So this is probably the biggest course or the biggest module in the entire course is this marketing essentials, because there's quite a few pillars that need to be put in place to support the overall business. So we're going to talk about building your brand representation and developing affinity. We cover a little bit of that in the masterclass, and it's going to be repeated here. So it is a complete lesson. We're also going to talk about website development, how you should develop the website, what platforms you should use, what you should put on the website, how do you communicate your messages, all of the fundamentals that you can put on the site and you should have there as you're launching so that you can best support your business. I'm also going to talk about content strategy and development. What do you need at the various stages of growth for your business? So a lot of companies come into this thinking that they need to create like a huge amount of content, and they need to be creating it and churning through it very, very quickly, putting it out on social, putting it here, putting it there. And what I'm going to give you is the fundamentals of what you need to do from a content strategy for this phase that you're in, whether you are GA, whether you're building your brand, whether you're in customer acquisition, whether you're in scaling. What are all those things that you need to put in place, the minimum viable amount of content, and how do you develop it? We're also going to talk about social media and influencers. Those are two different things, and I even have a lesson that's dedicated completely to influencers. But how do you build a social media platform? How do you build your developers? How do you use your content on social media? There's lots of things that you need to do from a social media perspective, and it's going to be your cheapest route to market. So what do you need to build that practice? And I'm going to give you all those tips. And then finally, tech stack. So what do you need to put in your tech stack? A lot of companies, what they do is they look at a competitor, they look at a partner, they look at one of these big organizations and say, I need to have that tech stack because obviously they're successful. So whatever they're buying, I want to buy too. And that is not the case. It is not a one size fits all. Every organization is going to be different in the type of tech stack that they need to put in, particularly marketing tech stack. And that's what we're going to go over. What do you need every single stage, and how do you grow? When do you think about changing some of your components? And I will give you the full gamut of what that looks like in my recommendations. And then we're going to talk about marketing automation and innovation. So one of the things that companies sometimes avoid is putting platforms into place that help them scale, that help them eliminate manual tasks and do them automatically. So in this particular lesson, we're going to talk about automating marketing, doing marketing automation. So how do you put that into place? And then I'm going to walk you through building email sequences that are going to help you save time and scale faster. So you can actually, I will teach you how to build email sequences, but then I also offer templates on the email sequences that you can start to edit and put into your marketing automation platform. So at least you have something that helps nurture anybody that is coming into your organization and needs to be grown and to the point where they are finally ready to be a customer. So we're going to talk about platform options. We're going to talk about integrating the automation with your website. And then finally, building the email sequences. Then we're going to talk about email marketing. So module 5 is all about building your lists, and this is specific to partners, prospects, and press. So I have a lesson on each one of those. How do you build your contact lists? Because email marketing, people think it's a dying thing, and Contrary to that, it is not a dying mechanism of marketing. It is something that is still viable, especially because building a list means that you have collected a group of people who are interested in your product or your service. They may not be ready to buy what you're offering, but they may be ready to buy in the future. And so by harvesting them and nurturing them, especially from a prospect perspective, you may increase the amount of sales that you have later on because you have taken the time to build the affinity with this audience, and now they trust you enough to trust you with their money to give you a solution that will solve their problem. For partners, it's important to have lists because you want to communicate to them anytime you have a product release or an upgrade, or you have expanded in a region or anything like that, because they need to keep abreast of what is happening with your organization, because their business likely depends on your business or vice versa. So you want to keep them up to date. And then the press is very important to have because that's how you nurture these groups of individuals, the press that are influencers. They are going to need to understand what you do, be updated on what you do, so that they can write about you at certain points, or they think about you when they have a story on their desk that they need to write about. They can come to a solution matter expert at your firm and get the update on what they need in order to write. And then part of that lesson is also, how do you use these lists effectively? So part of it is creating the list, and then the second one is how to use the list to get the most out of them. Module 6 is all about leveraging your influencers. So I'm going to go over who influencers are in the market, not naming names, but how do you identify the influencers for your particular market. I'm going to talk about press and also podcasters. So there's market influencers, press, and podcasters. Market influencers, I'm looking specifically at people and like it could be the press, it could be analysts, it could be a whole gamut of an audience, but they influence your customer base or your partner base, or it's who people are looking for to get more information. And I specifically call it out as influencers, press, and podcasters in their own respective lessons. And it's all about creating a strategy around these influencers so that you can get your message heard. You can influence the market that these influencers are influencing, so that they come to you, so they're not just seeing the information coming from you, they're seeing it from an external source, a third party that has vetted you. And that is what you want. That's how you build affinity faster, is by getting others talking about you. In Module 7, we're going to go over budgets. This is probably the part that most people have issues with when they're considering marketing, is what do they budget for? First of all, how much budget do you need? So we're going to go over that. How much budget do you need to do the things that you need to do for your business effectively? How do you determine what that budget looks like? How do you spend it at certain business growth levels? So if you're, a GA product, if you are building brand awareness, if you are acquiring customers, at all of those points, you're going to need different investment in marketing across multiple channels. So I'm going to walk you through, how do you establish what your marketing budget needs to be? How do you allocate it across the channels that are going to be most effective for your business at different stages? And then how do you track that budget over time? And that's going to be really important for you to understand exactly where every single one of your dollars are going, so that you can measure return better. You can see what's working and what's not working. And this will also help you plan for future investment. You need to make every dollar count, especially at the startup level, so that you can be optimized and effective and reach your business goals. The last module is 2 parts. The first one is going to be talking about events. So this didn't really fit in anywhere else in my course, so I put it here. And it's really about, what are you doing with events? How are you planning for them? How are you executing them? What's your follow-up strategy? And how do you measure them? There's a lot of different events that we can do out there as a marketing organization. Some are more effective than others. And so I offer a couple of different alternatives, and then how to actually plan and execute on these using my experience over the last 20 years on what's the most effective way. And then the other part of that module is the extras, as what I call it. So one of the lessons is on too much too soon. And this is specifically focused on some of the things that startups do that they do too early in their growth. And these are things that I want you to avoid doing, because there is a tendency, especially as a startup, and you're very, very excited to get, and you start getting some success, you start getting really excited and you start planning things, and you're getting over your skis, as the saying is. You're over your skis, you are freaking out, you don't have the staff, you don't have the resources, you don't have the budget, you don't have any of it to actually execute things well. So this lesson is about what you should be eliminating, what you should be focusing on, and the gist of it is that focus on fewer things and do them really, really well. The other part of that lesson is going to be on the common marketing pitfalls. And so there are a lot of marketing offers out there. There's a lot of gotchas. There's a lot of things that I have seen companies fall for that don't get them the traction they think they're going to get, because the offer may be too good to be true, or it's just not the right stage of growth for you. You don't have the budget to support it. You don't have the staff to support it. So I want you to avoid these marketing pitfalls and gotchas at all costs. So I created a lesson specifically around that. So you may be wondering now, here's always the question, right? You have a course, you have a product, but what's the investment from you to get this course so that you can start doing your own thing? So included in this course, here's a couple of screenshots from the actual course itself, but included in this course, or this marketing blueprint for startups, is you're going to get video training. So it's very similar in this case to what I did with the marketing blueprint. My face is not on each of the screens, so it is conducted as if it was just slides and then me speaking over them. So I do offer a lot of training in a verbal way and with slides to back it up. I do offer printable checklists. So they don't have to be printable. You can obviously save them in a digital format, but there are checklists that you can use throughout the course for different modules and topics that will help you in your business. Because I have often found that when you're talking about a marketing campaign or some activity that you're doing, it's not just one line item. There are usually 10 or 15 things that you need to do to consider that thing done. And so these checklists have been designed in the way that I have created my to-do lists, my project planning, and they're all based on that. I've also created a bunch of templates that you can use. For instance, like if you have never created a solution brief, I have a template for that. For budgeting, I have a template for that. So there's a lot of templates that support the content that is articulated in the course. It is a self-paced course, so you can do it at your own leisure. There, you can pause trainings, you can fast forward, you can skip over things. It really depends on how you want to navigate through it and at the pace that you want to go. And then throughout our real world examples, like I said, I've been in this business for 20 plus years. I've worked with a whole host of companies, and so I infuse real world examples throughout. And then if you do buy the course, you are grandfathered into any future updates that I make to the course. So I do have plans to add tutorials, video grabs of things, showing you what I do to create social media, things like that. So as I add that content to the course, you will automatically get access to that. Any checklist, assets, templates, any of that stuff that I create, or if I add additional modules or lessons, you will be updated, or you will get those updates as well. So the price for this, or the investment for this, is $1,497, and this covers all 8 modules, the checklist, everything that is contained here. Okay, so in addition to the marketing blueprint for startups, I also offer a bundle where you can bundle in the course itself with coaching from me. So I do offer, as part of this coaching, it's 3 hours of coaching time that can be delivered with one-on-one Zoom meetings, or it could be WhatsApp messaging, either voice calls or just texting. and or email. So you have access through all of those three things to me as you're going through the course, and you can ask questions, we can walk through things, I can give you my perspective on it. And so this bundle itself, the value of it is $2,247. That is the $1,497 from the course, plus I usually charge $250 an hour for my consulting business. So that is the value of that. And for this bundle, I am offering it at the price of $300 off for this particular promotion. So it brings it down to $1,947. And that's for the marketing blueprint startup for startups plus the consulting time. So are you ready to enroll? If you are, if all the things here sounded good to you, then all you need to do is to enroll today is you go to my sales page, which will be linked here. You click on that and you can sign up for the marketing blueprint, or you can sign up and for the marketing blueprint, and or you can also sign up for coaching. So take a look at my sales page, and I hope that you decide to enroll. I think it'll be very useful for you. There's a lot of value contained in this. And then once you have enrolled, this is what it'll look like. It is a platform based on Teachable. So once you enroll, you will need to create an account in Teachable to access the course. And this is a screenshot of what the course looks like. I'll move my head, but what it'll show you at the top is just getting introduced to the first module, and then you can see that you can start at each one at any time. There are downloads available in here. And then you can also see what your progress is as you're progressing through the course. So it scrolls through, and what you can do is if you are not sure yet, you can go to my sales page, and there is an example on the sales page of all of the curriculum that is included here. So you'll be able to see all of the lessons that are included per module, all the downloads that you get available, and keep in mind that as I'm adding content, they will all be displayed in that course curriculum itself. You just won't be able to, on that sales page, click on the start. Obviously, that's just an example and showing you what's in the platform. You will not be able to view any of the lessons unless you enroll for the course. And with that, I thank you for joining my masterclass. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at rosa@rosalear.com, and I hope to see you in the course.